Government goes to a bank and says, I want the name of the customer who made purchases on these specific dates and may have bought a firearm at any time. Should there be a warrant requirement before the bank has to be compelled by the government to give that information? Should there be a warrant requirement first? How's it voluntary? This is the third party. The bank's giving it.
No, if I go to the bank and request certain information regarding an investigation that I'm participating in.
I'm just saying in a fundamental sense, do you think there should be a warrant requirement before some financial institution hands over the name of the customer based on certain purchases they may have made? So in a general sense.
Yes.
You think there should be?
Yes.
That's great, because your colleagues don't think so. Now, let me go to this. Do you think, Mr. Michel, that if it can't do a warrant, do you think there should be at least a notification? So should at least the bank say, hey, Mr. Smith, the FBI just asked me for all your purchases on a certain date, and they want to know if you've ever bought a gun. Do you think that the bank should at least tell their customer?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Congress Lens. I'm Audrey. That clip you just watched is one of those moments in Congress that should make every American stop and think. In that exchange, Jim Jordan asks a very simple but powerful question. Should the government need a warrant before digging through your financial records? To me, that question goes straight to the heart of personal freedom and privacy. When the government can quietly ask banks for information about what you buy, when you buy it, or even whether you've purchased something like a firearm, that raises serious concerns about constitutional protections. One thing that really stood out in this discussion is how persistent Jim Jordan was. Instead of accepting vague answers, Jim Jordan kept bringing the conversation back to the same issue: the Fourth Amendment and the requirement of a warrant. Then the conversation took an even more interesting turn when Jordan Peterson talked about what happened in Canada during the trucker protests. According to Jordan Peterson, some protesters and even people who donated small amounts had their bank accounts frozen. That example added a whole new layer to the debate about financial privacy and government power. Today we're going to break down this moment, talk about why Jim Jordan's questions matter, and look at the bigger implications for financial freedom and government oversight. Before we jump in, if you enjoy clear and honest breakdowns of what's happening inside Congress, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Congress Lens, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next discussion. All right, let's get into it.
Yield back.
Generally, he is back. Chair recognizes himself. Mr. Michel, if the government's going to go get information from banks, and understand what happened in this particular situation and in other situations, the government goes to the bank and says, I want the name of the customer who's making purchases in a certain date time, and I want the name of the customer who may have bought a firearm at any time. If they're going to do that, do you think they need to get a warrant first?
Do I think they should?
Yes.
Well, yes.
Mr. Tedesco, do you think they need to get a warrant to do that?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fanone, do you think they need to get a warrant?
I apologize. Sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Government goes to a bank and says, I want the name of the customer who made purchases on these specific dates and may have bought a firearm at any time. Should there be a warrant requirement before the bank has to be compelled by the government to give that information? Should there be a warrant requirement first?
I mean, in my experience, I always sought voluntary compliance. It's less paperwork. That being said, if I was unable to...
Wait. Voluntary compliance?
Correct.
How's it voluntary? This is the third party. The bank's giving it.
No, if I go to the bank and request certain information regarding an investigation that I'm participating in.
I'm just saying in a fundamental sense, do you think there should be a warrant requirement before some financial institution hands over the name of the customer based on certain purchases they may have made? So in a general sense.
Yes.
You think there should be?
Yes.
That's great, because your colleagues don't think so. Now, let me go to this. Do you think, Mr. Michel, that if it can't do a warrant, do you think there should be at least a notification? So should at least the bank say, hey, Mr. Smith, the FBI just asked me for all your purchases on a certain date, and they want to know if you've ever bought a gun. Do you think that the bank should at least tell their customer who they're supposed to serve? Do you think they should at least be compelled to tell them that?
Yes.
Mr. Tedesco?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes, with reasonable exceptions for an ongoing criminal case.
Fair enough. Mr. Peterson?
They should get a warrant.
You should get a warrant. Back to the first thing. Mr. Falone?
Again, with exceptions for criminal investigations.
We got agreement on the panel. The first time we've had that this morning. Dr. Peterson, I want you to talk about the debanking issue we saw so much of, and how that was, particularly I guess with the truckers, and how that's, because I see it coming. I see it coming here, and it frightens me. I want you to talk about what took place in Canada and if it in any way impacted you.
Well, there was essentially a working class protest against the extensive length of the COVID lockdowns. And one consequence of that was that Canadians who participated, even by donating to the protest and even by donating small amounts to the protest, had their bank accounts seized in consequence of a collusion between the banks and the government that was extrajudicial, that was recently deemed unconstitutional, despite the fact that we don't have strong First Amendment claims. So this happened. The government is currently maneuvering in Canada to make the possibility of such collusion a certainty across multiple actual and potential domains of so-called harm, particularly in relationship to government-defined hate. Yes, this is absolutely coming. And it's facilitated by the kinds of advancements in technology that we talked about today.
Yeah, we know it's coming because we've seen what do they call it? The liaison information report from the FBI to the banks saying possibly include firearm legislation, the easing of immigration status, new limits on public land, and discontent with renewed measures to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So the very issue that these truckers were debanked in Canada is the very thing the government is saying to banks, we need to look at this as well. That single issue. That is, again, what frightens me so much. And frankly, when you're getting this information, if you're going to get it, why you should be compelled to get the warrant before you go get it. Mr. Knight, jump right in.
I want to clarify one part of my answer to the second question about notification.
Yep.
The Right to Financial Privacy Act, I think, does a good job of this, where notification can be delayed, but the government has to go to a court and get permission to delay. I think if we're going,
you shift the burden.
The
burden's where it should be on the government to go get it from a court.
Absolutely, and I do believe that there should be a warrant requirement, so the notification would only be delayed in that event.
In this world we're now in, the full committee, as I said, I think I may have mentioned earlier, on the FISA reauthorization, we have said the same thing. If you're going to go search American citizens based on their phone number, their email address, in this haystack of information that's out there, if you're going to do that, go get a warrant. And we're having the same fight there. But it seems to me that getting a warrant, Fourth Amendment constitutional right, is how it has to be handled.
Now that we've watched the full exchange, there are a few things that really stood out to me. First, Jim Jordan kept the conversation focused on a very basic principle. If the government wants access to your private financial information, it should go to a judge and get a warrant. That idea is not extreme. It comes directly from the Fourth Amendment, which protects citizens from unreasonable searches. But during the hearing we saw that the process does not always work that way. One witness mentioned requesting what they called voluntary compliance from banks. Jim Jordan immediately pushed back on that idea. Because when the government asks a bank for information about a customer, can that really be considered voluntary? Banks are not exactly in a position where they can easily refuse those requests. That moment highlighted an important issue. There is a difference between legal authority and practical pressure. Jim Jordan seemed determined to make sure that point was not ignored. Another important moment came when Jim Jordan asked whether banks should at least notify customers when their financial information is requested. That is a huge question. If a bank is supposed to serve its customers, should those customers know when their information is being shared with investigators? Some witnesses said yes, but with exceptions during active criminal investigations. That is understandable. Investigators sometimes need time to conduct an inquiry without alerting the person being investigated. But the key point from that discussion is that even when notification is delayed, there should still be judicial oversight. The government should still have to go through the courts. Then the hearing moved to the example raised by Jordan Peterson about the trucker protests in Canada. According to Jordan Peterson, some protesters and even people who donated small amounts had their bank accounts frozen through cooperation between financial institutions and the government. Regardless of where someone stands politically on those protests, that situation raises a serious concern. When financial systems can be used as tools of enforcement outside the usual legal process, it sets a precedent that could affect anyone. That is clearly why Jim Jordan said the issue worries him. The concern is not just about one protest or one political movement. The concern is about whether financial institutions could eventually become tools for surveillance or political pressure. Jim Jordan also referenced an FBI liaison report suggesting that banks monitor certain categories of political grievances. That includes topics like firearm legislation and pandemic policies. For Jim Jordan, that connection strengthens the concern that financial data could be used to track people based on their beliefs or political positions. And that is why Jim Jordan kept coming back to the same solution during the hearing. Get a warrant. A warrant requirement puts the responsibility where it belongs. On the government. If investigators believe there is a legitimate reason to examine someone's financial records, they should be able to explain that reason to a judge. What impressed me about Jim Jordan in this exchange is that Jim Jordan stayed focused on that core principle. Instead of turning the hearing into a political spectacle, Jim Jordan kept asking the same clear questions until the panel essentially agreed that a warrant should be required. That kind of persistence matters in congressional oversight. Sometimes the most important debates are not about partisan arguments. They are about the rules that protect individual rights. At the end of the day, whether someone agrees with Jim Jordan politically or not, the principle being discussed here is bigger than politics. It is about privacy, due process, and the limits of government power. And those are conversations every democracy needs to have openly. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you believe the government should always need a warrant before accessing someone's financial records, or should investigators have broader powers in certain cases? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Congress Lens, and share this with someone who wants a clearer view of what's happening inside Congress. Thanks for watching Congress Lens. I'm Audrey, and I'll see you in the next video.